Are you ready to learn the truth? Not the convenient lie taught in school physics and biology textbooks, but the cold, calculating reality hidden behind the veil of randomness. We are accustomed to believing that our existence is the result of incredible luck, that we won the cosmic lottery, where the chance of victory was 1 in infinity. But what if I told you there was no lottery? What if the cards were marked before the first star even ignited in the cold void? Welcome to the first chapter of our investigation. Today we begin dismantling the official picture of the world. We are using the only tool devoid of human fears and prejudices, the analytical artificial intelligence system Logos 7. We uploaded the fundamental constants of the universe, the parameters of our galaxy, and the characteristics of the solar system into its neural networks. The task was simple. Calculate the probability that Earth and the conditions on it arose by chance. The system's answer makes the blood run cold. But let's take it in order. Let's look at the foundation of our world, at what holds the very fabric of reality together. Scientists call this the fine-tuning of the universe, or the Goldilocks paradox. Everything in our world is not too hot, not too cold, not too heavy, and not too light. Everything is perfectly suited for life. They tell us, well, that's just how it happened. But let's delve into the details. There are a number of fundamental physical constants. These are numbers that determine how matter works. For example, the gravitational constant. If it were just 1/1,000,000,000% higher, the universe would have collapsed into itself immediately after the Big Bang. No stars, no galaxies, only a hot singularity. If it were lower by the same minuscule fraction, matter would have flown apart so quickly that atoms could never have gathered into stars. The universe would be a cold, dark, and empty place filled only with sparse dust. We asked Logos 7, what is the probability that gravity randomly acquired this specific single value possible for life? The system ran trillions of simulations. Its answer? The probability is equal to the probability that you, throwing a dart from one edge of the observable universe, hit a coin 1 centimeter in diameter on the other edge. And that is just one constant. And there are dozens of them. Take the strong nuclear force, the force that holds protons and neutrons together in the nucleus of an atom. Make this force just 2% weaker, and hydrogen would never turn into deuterium. Stars like our sun would simply not ignite. There would be nothing in the universe but hydrogen. Make it 2% stronger, and all hydrogen would burn up in the first minutes of the universe's existence. The result is the same: a dead world, without water, without carbon, without life. Logos 7's algorithms conducted a cross-analysis of all these constants simultaneously. The system revealed that these parameters cannot be independent. They are as if tuned on a single mixing console. Someone, or something, set every switch to the only possible position for the existence of complex matter. The system delivers an unequivocal verdict. The mathematical model of the random emergence of such parameters shows a statistical error trending toward absolute zero. This is not a coincidence. This is calibration. But let's assume the universe is indeed vast, and we are simply lucky to live in the single one out of an infinite number of multiverses where physics works. Fine. Let's come down from the heavens to Earth, or rather, to our galaxy, the Milky Way. Have you ever wondered where exactly we are? We live in the so-called galactic habitable zone. This is a very narrow ring inside the galaxy's disk. If our solar system were closer to the center, radiation would kill us. The density of stars there is so high that the night sky would be brighter than day, and constant supernova explosions would sterilize any planet every few million years. In the center of the galaxy lies a supermassive black hole, Sagittarius A, which is a source of colossal X-ray radiation. Life is impossible there, but life is also impossible on the outskirts of the galaxy. There are too few heavy elements there. The metallicity of stars is negligible. There is simply nothing to build Earth-type planets from. there's only gas. We are in a quiet, calm harbor, at the ideal distance from the dangerous center and the desolate outskirts. Moreover, our solar system has a unique feature identified by Logo 7. We are located between the spiral arms of the galaxy in the so-called Orion Arm. Spiral arms are zones of active star formation. They are dangerous neighborhoods full of chaos and explosions. We move at such a speed that we almost never enter these arms, remaining in a zone of relative peace. The system calculated that such synchronization of the sun's orbit with the galaxy's rotation occurs in less than 5% of stars. Moving on, let's look at our star, the sun. It seems to us that the sun is an ordinary star, but this is a lie. Most stars in our galaxy are red dwarfs. They are small, cold, and live a very long time. But they have a problem. They are unstable. They constantly eject monstrous flares that strip the atmosphere from any nearby planets. Life near a red dwarf is life inside a microwave with the door open. Another type of star is blue giants. They live only a few million years and explode. Life simply wouldn't have time to originate. Our sun is a yellow dwarf of spectral class G2V. It is the perfect battery. It has been burning evenly, steadily, without sharp jumps in brightness for 4.5 billion years. Logo 7 analyzed databases on millions of stars obtained by the Kepler telescope. The system's conclusion: our sun is anomalously stable even for its class. It works as if on an artificial power limiter so as not to harm its wards. Now let's move to Earth itself. The distance from Earth to the sun is 149,600,000 kilometers. This distance is perfect. If we were just 5% closer, the oceans would boil away, and we would turn into a second Venus, a hell with a temperature of 400 degrees and rains of sulfuric acid. If we were 10% further away, the oceans would freeze and Earth would become a ball of ice. We are on a razor's edge. But it's not just about distance. It's about the orbit. The orbits of most exoplanets we have discovered are elongated ellipses. This means the planet either roasts near the star or freezes far from it. Earth's orbit is almost a perfect circle. The eccentricity of our orbit is close to zero. This ensures a stable climate for millions of years. Logo 7, comparing data on thousands of planetary systems, defined our orbit as artificially corrected. The probability of such a circular orbit forming naturally in a system with giants like Jupiter is extremely low. Speaking of Jupiter, this is another piece of the puzzle that haunts our artificial intelligence. Jupiter is a giant vacuum cleaner. It is 318 times heavier than Earth. Its gravity works like a shield. It attracts or flings away comets and asteroids from the solar system that would otherwise bombard Earth. Without Jupiter, complex life forms on Earth would be destroyed by cosmic rocks every 10,000 years. We wouldn't have had time to develop even the simplest intelligence. The simulation run by Logo 7 shows a terrifying picture. If you remove Jupiter from the equation, the frequency of impact events, that is, large asteroid strikes on Earth, increases 1,000-fold. Imagine the extinction of the dinosaurs, but not once in 65 million years, but every 100 centuries. Jupiter is exactly where it needs to be, and has exactly the mass necessary to protect the third planet. This doesn't look like a random neighbor. It looks like a security system. But let's return to Earth. We have something that Mars, Venus, or Mercury do not. A powerful magnetic field. The Earth's core is a giant dynamo. It consists of molten iron and nickel that rotates, creating an invisible cocoon around the planet. This cocoon reflects the solar wind, a stream of deadly radiation from the sun. Without a magnetic field, the solar wind would simply blow our atmosphere into space, as happened to Mars billions of years ago. And here, Logo 7 discovers another oddity. The size of Earth and the composition of its core are perfectly balanced to maintain this field for billions of years. Were Earth slightly smaller, the core would have already cooled and solidified. The magnetic field would disappear, and life would perish. Were Earth larger, gravity would be too strong, the atmosphere too dense, and we would be crushed by pressure, as if at the bottom of the ocean. Next, axial tilt. The Earth's axis is tilted at an angle of 23.5 degrees. It is this tilt that gives us the changing seasons. But more importantly, it ensures the even distribution of heat across the planet. If there were no tilt, there would be unbearable heat at the equator, and the poles would expand to temperate latitudes. If the tilt were greater, say 45 degrees, the seasons would be extreme. Half a year of total darkness and cold, half a year of scorching sun. Who holds this tilt? Why doesn't Earth tumble chaotically like Mars? The answer is the moon. But we will talk about it in detail in the next chapter because the moon is the biggest anomaly of all. For now, let's just record. The presence of such a huge satellite for such a small planet is a unique case in the solar system, and it is this satellite that works as a gyroscope, stabilizing our rotation. Now let's put it all together. We loaded all these factors into Logos 7 for the final calculation of this chapter. The right universe with finely tuned constants. The right galaxy. The right place in the galaxy. The right type of star. The right distance to the star. The right planet size. The right core composition. The presence of water, which we will also discuss separately. The presence of the protector giant Jupiter. The presence of the moon stabilizer. What is the probability that all these factors coincided by chance at one point in space and time? The system outputs a number that the human brain cannot comprehend. It is 1 chance in 10 to the 50th power. In mathematics, it is accepted that events with a probability of less than 1 in 10 to the 50th power simply do not happen. It is 0. It is impossible. If you find a working Swiss watch on the beach, you won't think that the wind and waves randomly assembled it from grains of sand and metal over millions of years. You will realize that the watch had a watchmaker. Earth is a mechanism billions of times more complex than any watch. Logos 7's analysis is ruthless. The system concludes that Earth possesses all the signs of an artificially created object or, at a minimum, a deeply terraformed world prepared for a specific purpose. We are in an incubator. The term Goldilocks from the fairy tale, where the girl chooses porridge that is neither hot nor cold, but just right. Sounds like wicked irony here. We weren't just placed in ideal conditions, we were locked in them. The environmental parameters are so rigid that a step to the left or a step to the right means death. We are not random tourists in the universe. We are inmates of a maximum security facility, or perhaps a valuable experiment in a test tube. Scientists call this the anthropic principle. We see the universe this way because only in such a universe could an observer arise. This is a beautiful tautology designed to hide the horror of realizing the truth. Logos. 7 calls it something else. Protocol. Incubator. Imagine an aquarium. The fish inside think their world is water, stones, and algae. They don't see the glass. They don't see the filters that clean the water. They don't see the heater that keeps the temperature. And most importantly, they don't see the one who sprinkles food from above. We are those fish. And our physical constants, our magnetic field, our Jupiter, these are the aquarium walls, filters, and heaters. But if Earth is an artificial incubator, 2 main questions arise. First, who is the architect? And second, more frightening, what are we being raised here for? We've only just begun to unravel this tangle. In this chapter, we proved that the foundation of our house could not have arisen on its own. But the deeper we go, the stranger the findings will be. If Earth is a house, it must have a surveillance system, A camera that watches us 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And this camera hangs right over our heads. In the next chapter, we will raise our eyes to the sky and look at the moon. Logos 7 has already finished analyzing the data of our satellite, and its conclusions contradict everything you knew about celestial mechanics. Why does the moon perfectly cover the sun's disk during an eclipse? Why does it ring like a bell when struck? And why does the artificial intelligence classify it not as a celestial body, but as a technical device? Prepare yourselves. The illusion of the natural world is beginning to burst at the seams. We have only cracked the door to the rabbit hole open. And believe me, the bottom is not visible. Stay with us. The truth is out there, and it is scarier than you can imagine. Every night you raise your eyes to the sky and see it. A pale, cold disk hanging over our heads. Poets have sung of it for millennia. Lovers have sworn oaths under its light, and sailors have navigated by it in the boundless oceans. The moon, the most familiar object in the night sky. We are told that it is just a piece of rock, dead and silent, Earth's faithful companion formed billions of years ago as a result of a cosmic catastrophe. But what if I told you that everything you know about the moon is a screen? What if this object has no right to be there from the point of view of the laws of astrophysics? We uploaded all known data about the moon into the Logos 7 analytical system. Its orbit, density, chemical composition, seismic activity, and movement characteristics. The system processed vast arrays of data, compared them with parameters of other satellites in the solar system, and produced a result that lights up the screen in alarming red. The verdict of the artificial intelligence is unambiguous. The moon is an anomaly. The probability of its natural origin with current parameters trends towards statistical impossibility. Let's start with the most obvious fact, which lies on the surface but which we rarely think about. Look at a total solar eclipse. It is an incredible spectacle when the moon's disk perfectly, to the millimeter, covers the sun's disk. The star's corona remains visible, but the sphere itself is completely blocked. Do you know the mathematics behind this coincidence? The sun's diameter is 1,392,000 kilometers. The moon's diameter is 3,474 kilometers. The sun is exactly 400 times larger than the moon. But at the same time, the sun is exactly 400 times further from Earth than the moon. Thanks to this perfect proportion, 400 to 1 in both cases, their apparent sizes in our sky are absolutely identical. We asked Logo 7, what is the probability that a planet would randomly acquire a satellite with such a precise ratio of size and distance at exactly the moment when a rational observer appeared on the planet? After all, the moon is moving away from Earth at 3 centimeters and 8 millimeters per year. There was a time when it was closer, and there will be a time when it flies further away. But right now, when we humans look at the sky, the alignment is perfect. The system conducted a comparative analysis of all 60 satellites in our solar system. No other planet has such a coincidence. Not Jupiter, not Saturn, not Mars. There, eclipses look like a small pellet flying across a huge disk or a shapeless shadow. Only Earth received this flawless cosmic focus. Logo 7 classifies this not as a coincidence but as a calibration. It is a marker. As if someone wanted to draw our attention to this object, forcing us to ask the question, how is this possible? The famous sci-fi writer and scientist Isaac Asimov once said, "The moon has no business being where it is. It is the greatest stroke of luck, or the greatest mystery in history." The artificial intelligence disagrees with him on only one thing. Luck has nothing to do with it. Moving on. Look at the orbit. All natural satellites of planets move in elliptical orbits. This is the law of celestial mechanics. Gravity is a crude thing. It stretches orbits. But the moon is special. Its orbit is almost a perfect circle. Moreover, the moon behaves strangely for a satellite of a planet our size. Earth is too small to capture and hold such a massive body. The moon is 1/81st of Earth's mass. This is a gigantic proportion. For comparison, Mars's satellites, Phobos and Deimos, are tiny asteroids, dust motes compared to the planet. Jupiter's satellites are large, but Jupiter itself is thousands of times more massive than them. In our system, Earth and the moon behave not like a planet and a satellite, but like a double planet system. Logos 7 calculated gravitational vectors and concluded, for the moon to enter such a circular orbit naturally, it must have approached Earth with jewelry-like precision of speed vector and entry angle. If it had flown slightly faster, it would have flown past. Slightly slower, it would have crashed into Earth. The entry angle had to be calibrated to thousandths of a degree. In nature, such captures happen, but the orbit after them always remains an elongated, chaotic ellipse for millions of years. The moon, however, parked perfectly evenly. The system interprets this movement as controlled braking. Now let's talk about what it is made of. Official science offers us the giant impact theory. Allegedly, 4.5 billion years ago, a protoplanet Theia, the size of Mars, crashed into Earth. The impact threw a bunch of debris into space from which the moon assembled. A beautiful theory. But it crumbles to dust at the first chemical analysis. We brought back 382 kilograms of soil from the moon. Laboratories around the world studied every gram, and something incredible was revealed. The isotopic composition of oxygen, titanium, and tungsten on the moon and on Earth is absolutely identical. If the moon were a fragment of Theia, it should contain chemical traces of that foreign body. A foreign planet would have a different chemical passport, but it doesn't exist. The moon is flesh of Earth's flesh. How is this possible with an impact? To mix two planets into a homogeneous mass, the impact would have had to completely vaporize Earth. But we are here. Logos 7 ran the Theia impact simulation 10,000 times with different parameters. Not a single model yielded a result where the moon obtains a 100% terrestrial composition. The probability of this scenario is less than 1%. The system suggests an alternative. The moon was created from Earth material, but not accidentally. It's as if someone took a piece of Earth and intentionally molded a satellite out of it. But the scariest discovery awaited us inside. Or rather, in the absence of what should be inside. On November 20th, 1969, the crew of Apollo 12 dropped the lunar module ascent stage onto the moon's surface. It was a planned experiment. Scientists wanted to test seismic sensors installed on the surface. The module, weighing 2.5 tons, crashed into the moon at a speed of 6,000 kilometers per hour. What happened next shocked NASA. The moon rang. This is not a metaphor. Seismometers recorded the vibration, not for minutes, but for hours. The moon vibrated like a giant gong or bell. The seismic wave did not dampen, as happens upon impact with a dense, solid planetary body. It traveled across the surface, resonating. Ken Johnson, head of the Data and Photo Control Department at the NASA Lunar Laboratory, said at the time, "The moon rings like a bell, but this is only possible in one case, if it is hollow inside." Later, the experiment was repeated with a heavier stage of the Saturn V rocket. The impact was equivalent to the explosion of 11 tons of TNT. The moon rang for 3 hours and 20 minutes. The waves propagated to a depth of up to 40 kilometers. We uploaded these seismograms into Logos 7. The artificial intelligence conducted a spectral analysis of wave attenuation. The system's conclusion: the structure of the object does not correspond to the model of a solid stone sphere with a core. The waves behave as if they are propagating along a metallic shell, beneath which lies either a void or an extremely rarefied structure. Recall the density. Earth's average density is 5.5 grams per cubic centimeter. The moon's density is only 3 3/10 grams. Where does such a difference come from if they are made of the same material? Where did the mass go? The answer suggests itself. There are enormous cavities inside the moon. Official science says the moon has a small, cold, iron core. But Logos 7 points to the mass distribution anomaly known as mascons, mass concentrations. Beneath the lunar Maria lie huge zones with increased gravity. They are arranged symmetrically, like nodes of some construction. The system sees a pattern in this. These are not random clumps of lava. They are load-bearing elements of a framework. A rigid hull is hidden beneath the surface of the moon. This explains another mystery, the mystery of the craters. Look at photos of the moon. There are craters hundreds of kilometers in diameter. For example, the Gagarin crater or the Hertzsprung crater. With an asteroid impact of such force, the depth of the funnel should be dozens of kilometers. But lunar craters are surprisingly shallow. The bottoms of even the largest craters are flat and convex, following the curvature of the sphere. The depth rarely exceeds 4 kilometers. Why can't asteroids penetrate the moon deeper? What stops them? It is as if beneath the layer of dust and rocks, which we call regolith, lies impenetrable armor. Astronomers call this the crater depth paradox. Logos 7 calls it a protective casing. Impact simulation shows. To obtain such crater geometry, the impactor must meet the resistance of a material tens of times stronger than granite. For example, a titanium alloy. And by the way, the titanium content in lunar soil is anomalously high. In some samples, 10 times higher than in the richest deposits on Earth. Now let's add these facts together. Perfect orbit, impossible eclipse geometry, hollowness and the Bell effect, impenetrable crater bottoms, anomalously lightweight, only one side always facing Earth. Yes, that's another point we take for granted. Synchronous rotation. The moon makes one revolution around its axis in exactly the same time it takes to orbit Earth. Therefore, we always see only its face. The far side of the moon is an eternal mystery hidden from the eyes of the terrestrial observer until the beginning of the space age. Why is the satellite so perfectly synchronized? Engineers know the answer. If you want to build a surveillance station for a planet, you must lock its orientation so that the equipment always looks at the object of study, while the rear side, protected by armor, takes the hits of meteorites from open space. And indeed, the far side of the moon is pitted with craters much more heavily than the visible side. It took everything upon itself. It is our shield. But what is the main function of this shield? We already mentioned this in the first chapter. Stabilization. Without the moon, Earth would spin at a breakneck speed. A day would last only 6 hours. Winds would blow at 500 kilometers per hour. The planet's axis would chaotically change tilt, turning jungles into glaciers in a couple of years. Life more complex than bacteria could not survive. The moon works as a gyroscope and a brake. It slowed Earth's rotation to a comfortable 24 hours. It keeps our axis at a stable angle of 23 degrees. It creates tides, which, biologists believe, allowed life to move from the ocean to land. Logos 7 conducted a final correlation of data for this chapter. The system's conclusion frightens with its technical coldness. Object Moon functionally corresponds to an artificial planetary system stabilizer and orbital monitoring module. Probability of natural formation with current set of parameters, 1/10,000,000%. Recommended classification, megastructure. In the 60s, Soviet scientists Mikhail Vasin and Alexander Shcherbakov of the USSR Academy of Sciences published an article titled, "Is the Moon the Creation of Alien Intelligence?" They suggested that the moon is a hollow planetoid, a spaceship that was moored to Earth by an ancient civilization. Back then, they were laughed at. Today, When we have seismograph data and precise gravity maps, their theory no longer seems funny. It seems like the only one that explains everything. Who drove the ship here? Who hung this lantern over our cradle? Ancient texts of many peoples speak of times when there was no moon in the sky. The chronicles of the city of Tiwanaku, legends of the Zulus, and Greek philosophers like Aristotle mention proselenes, those who lived before the moon. If the moon was delivered here, it was the most massive engineering operation in the history of the solar system. And it was done for us, so that we could live, so that the climate would be stable, so that nights wouldn't be absolutely dark. But any artificial satellite has two tasks. The first is assistance. The second is control. If the moon is a station, who is sitting inside? And are they watching us right now while we try to unravel their technologies? In the next chapter, we will come down from the heavens to Earth, or rather, into the oceans. We will talk about the substance that makes us alive, about water. Where did it come from? Why is there so much of it? And why does Logos 7 believe that our water is not a native element of Earth, but cargo delivered by the same supply service that hung the moon? Prepare to dive into a mystery that flows in your veins. The truth is closer than it seems. It is in every sip of water. Look at the glass of water that might be sitting in front of you right now. A transparent, tasteless liquid. We take it for granted. We wash our hands with it, water flowers, drink when we are thirsty. For us, water is background. It is mundane. But from the perspective of chemistry and astrophysics, what you see in the glass is the most mysterious substance in the universe, and its presence on our planet is a crime against the laws of physics. We continue our investigation. We have already found out that the foundation of our world, orbit, star, satellite, was carefully designed. But an empty house, even with perfect climate control, is useless if there is nothing to drink in it. Today we will talk about the life support system, about the liquid that makes Earth a blue pearl in the black void. We uploaded data on the formation of terrestrial planets, the chemical composition of our oceans, and scenarios of the early evolution of the solar system into the analytical core, Logos 7. The question we asked the system sounded simple. Where did the water on Earth come from? The answer given by the artificial intelligence destroys the familiar picture of the world. The presence of water in the current volume on a planet formed in this sector of the solar system is a statistical anomaly. Probability of natural accumulation, less than 1/100%. Recommended hypothesis, external delivery. Let's go back 4.5 billion years to the moment of Earth's birth. Do you know what our planet looked like? It was a scorching hell. The surface temperature exceeded 1,000 degrees. The entire surface was an ocean of liquid magma. There was no atmosphere. There was no magnetic field. In astronomy, there is the concept of the snow line. This is a conditional boundary in the solar system beyond which it is cold enough for water to freeze into ice and be preserved during planet formation. In our system, this line passes somewhere between Mars and Jupiter. Everything closer to the Sun, Mercury, Venus, Earth, Mars, formed in the dry zone. The heat of the young star simply evaporated any volatile substances. Water, methane, ammonia, all were blown by the solar wind to the outskirts of the system, where the gas giants now fly. Earth was born a dry rock. Absolutely dry. Like a brick just taken out of the oven. If water had been on Earth initially, it would have simply boiled away and flown into space in the first millions of years, as gravity could not yet hold the hot steam. Logos 7 ran a simulation of the evolution of a dry Earth. The result is a planet similar to Venus, but without a dense atmosphere. A desert, rock, and dust. No oceans, no clouds, no life. But look out the window. 71% of our planet's surface is covered with water. The total volume of the hydrosphere is 1,386,000,000 cubic kilometers. This is a colossal amount. If all this water were distributed in an even layer over a sphere, Earth would be covered by a layer almost 3 kilometers deep. Where did it come from if it couldn't be here at birth? Official science offers us a term: late heavy bombardment. Scientists say that about 500 million years after Earth's formation, a barrage of asteroids and comets hit our planet. And allegedly, they brought the water. Sound logical? Only at first glance. We asked Logos 7 to analyze the logistics of this process. To fill our oceans to current levels, millions, I emphasize millions, of icy bodies would have had to fall on Earth. And this had to happen in a very narrow window of time, when Earth's crust had cooled enough so water wouldn't evaporate, but before life appeared on the planet. The system calculated trajectories. In natural conditions, asteroids from the Kuiper Belt or Oort cloud fly chaotically. The probability that such a massive stream randomly focused precisely on Earth, bypassing Jupiter, our shield, remember, is negligibly small. This does not look like a random bombardment. It looks like precision watering. Imagine you have a dry garden bed in the desert, and suddenly for exactly 1 hour, a downpour begins over it, while the sun continues to shine all around. This is not climate. Someone turned on the irrigation system. But the most interesting part lies in the chemical composition of water. Water is H2O, 2 hydrogen atoms, 1 oxygen atom. But hydrogen varies. There's ordinary light hydrogen, protium, and there's heavy hydrogen, deuterium. Its nucleus has an extra neutron. The ratio of deuterium to ordinary hydrogen is a unique fingerprint, a barcode that tells us where and under what conditions this water was born. In the 80s and 90s, we sent probes to comets. For example, the Giotto probe to Halley's Comet. And what did we see? The water on comets is different. It is heavier. The ratio of deuterium to hydrogen there is 2 or even 3 times higher than in Earth's oceans. Logos 7 compared isotopic signatures. The system's conclusion is categorical. The main mass of Earth's water could not have been delivered by comets from deep space. The chemical composition does not match. Then who is the courier? Asteroids from the main belt, the so-called carbonaceous chondrites. Their water is almost identical in composition to Earth's. But here is the problem. Asteroids are rocks. They contain very little water, just a few percent. To fill the world's oceans with rocks, the bombardment would have had to be of such intensity that it would have simply melted the Earth's crust anew, and the water would have evaporated again. It's a vicious circle. And here, Logos 7 points to another anomaly we discovered quite recently. Water exists not only on the surface, it is inside. In 2014, scientists found a diamond ejected by a volcano from the deep mantle, from a depth of about 600 kilometers. Inside the diamond, a tiny crystal of the mineral ringwoodite was trapped. This mineral acts like a sponge. It contains 1.5% water. Seem like a trifle? Logos 7 recalculated the volume of Earth's mantle. If the mantle's transition zone consists of ringwoodite, even partially, then there, beneath our feet, at a depth of hundreds of kilometers, lies a volume of water 3 times the volume of all surface oceans. We are living on a water bomb. The system builds a model. Earth didn't just receive water from above. It was saturated with it from within during the assembly stage. But how could a dry rock in a hot zone hold water inside? This contradicts the laws of planet formation. The only explanation the algorithm finds is the use of preservation technologies. As if water was delivered in the form of protected capsules or hydrated minerals that released moisture only when the planet cooled and formed a solid lid. This is called controlled resource release, a timer. Water came to the surface exactly when it became safe, through volcanoes, through geysers, through faults. It was the launch of the cooling and life support system. And now, let's look at water itself. We are used to thinking that water is a simple liquid. But from the point of view of chemistry, water is a monster. It is a substance that breaks all the rules. Water has about 70 anomalies, physical properties that do not fit into the general logic of liquids. Take the most important anomaly: density. Almost all substances in the universe contract and become heavier when cooled. A solid sinks in its own liquid. A piece of iron will sink in molten iron. A rock will sink in lava. But water couldn't care less about this rule. Upon freezing, it expands. Ice is lighter than water. That is why it floats on the surface. Think for a second what would happen if water behaved normally, like all other substances. Ice forming in winter on the surface of oceans and lakes would sink, dropping to the bottom. In summer, the sun couldn't melt the ice at depth. Over a few hundred years, all of Earth's oceans would freeze to the very bottom, turning into giant blocks of ice. Life in water would be impossible, and that means we wouldn't exist either. Logos 7 calculated the probability of the random emergence of a molecule with such a unique property, which is critically important specifically for a planetary biosphere. The system's answer: the property of anomalous expansion during phase transition looks like a programmed exception to physical laws. Pattern: protection of the aquatic environment from total freezing. This is a safety fuse. Someone hacked the code of physics and wrote special conditions for water to guarantee the incubator's survival. Another anomaly is heat capacity. Water is the best heat carrier. Oceans work like a giant radiator. They absorb heat during the day and summer without overheating, and release it at night and in winter without supercooling. Without oceans, temperature fluctuations on Earth would be hundreds of degrees per day. Water smooths the edges. It makes the climate mild. And finally, water is a universal solvent. It can dissolve more substances than any other liquid. It is the perfect transport. Inside your body, blood, which is essentially water, carries nutrients and oxygen to every cell. Neither ammonia, nor methane, nor liquid nitrogen is capable of such delicate chemical work. Logos 7 analyzed alternative biochemistries. Can life exist without water? The system ran modeling based on silicon, based on ammonia. Answer: theoretically possible, but reaction speeds would be thousands of times slower. What took us 1 billion years would take 1 trillion in an ammonia ocean. The universe simply hasn't existed that long. Water is the only accelerator allowing intelligence to be created within an acceptable time. So, what do we have by the end of the 3rd chapter? Earth should be a dry desert, but it is flooded with water. Water could not have appeared here naturally. It was delivered by massive bombardment. The chemical composition of this water is carefully selected. Huge reservoirs are hidden deep inside, like reserve tanks. The water molecule itself possesses magical properties that violate the laws of physics for the sake of preserving life. Logos 7 concludes, water is not a geological accident. It is a technological fluid. It is the working medium of the reactor called Earth. Someone shipped this resource here. Someone filled the bath, set the temperature, and checked the chemical composition. Everything was ready for occupancy. The stage was built, the sets arranged, the spotlights turned on. It remained to launch the main actors. But who are they? And where did they come from? Official science tells us that life originated accidentally in a primordial soup. Lightning struck a puddle and the first cell appeared there. Sounds like a fairy tale. But when we start taking apart this process from the point of view of probability theory and genetics, the fairy tale turns into absurdity. In the next chapter, we will talk about an event that scientists call the Cambrian explosion, about the moment when thousands of species of complex organisms suddenly appeared on an empty planet, without warning and without any transitional forms. They had eyes, skeletons, limbs, and shells. They appeared out of nowhere. Logo 7 calls this loading the update package. Prepare yourselves. In the next chapter, we will prove that Darwinian evolution is merely a screen for a biological programming process. We are moving from physics to biology, and there the traces of the Creator are visible even more clearly. Stay tuned. The water is deep, but the truth is even deeper. Imagine you are looking at a computer game loading screen. The progress bar crawls painfully slowly. 1%, 2%, 3%. This lasts for hours. Nothing happens on the screen, just a black background and rare pixel glitches. And suddenly, in an instant, the bar jumps from 3% to 100. The screen bursts with colors. A complex three-dimensional world appears, filled with thousands of unique characters, monsters, and plants. All of this loads instantly, without preliminary rendering, in a ready, completed form. Any programmer will tell you that this doesn't happen with procedural generation. This happens only when installing a ready-made update package, a global patch. Today we will talk about the darkest secret of paleontology, about an event that Charles Darwin called the main threat to his theory. Official science calls it the Cambrian explosion. We, however, having analyzed the data through the prism of the artificial intelligence Logo 7, call it something else. Protocol. Mass upload. Let's rewind time. Way back. More than 3 billion years. In the first chapters, we found out that Earth was perfectly prepared. Orbit tuned, climate stabilized, filled with water. It would seem time to launch life. And life appeared. But what kind? For almost 3 billion years, a colossal stretch of time that our brain is unable to comprehend, Earth was a planet of slime. Everything that lived here was single-celled bacteria and cyanobacteria. They built their sticky mats, stromatolites, and slowly, very slowly, saturated the atmosphere with oxygen. Scientists call this period the boring billion. Evolution seemed to be asleep. No movement toward complexity. 3 billion years of copying the same primitive cell. And suddenly, about 541 million years ago, something impossible happens. In the geological record, in a layer just a few million years thick, which is the blink of an eye by planetary standards, the remains of almost all major animal phyla known to us today suddenly appear. Arthropods, chordates, mollusks, echinoderms. They have complex eyes, skeletons, shells, limbs, teeth, and antennae. It was not a gradual development. Logo 7 analyzed the rate of appearance of new biological traits. The graph built by the system looks not like a smooth upward curve, but like a vertical wall. Before the Cambrian, emptiness. In the Cambrian, a zoo. Charles Darwin wrote in his work On the Origin of Species. To the question why we do not find rich fossiliferous deposits belonging to these assumed earliest periods prior to the Cambrian system, I can give no satisfactory answer. He hoped that future paleontologists would find these intermediate links. 150 years have passed. We have dug up the entire planet. We found the famous Burgess Shale in Canada, the Maotian Shan shales in China. And you know what? Darwin would be horrified. There are no intermediate links. We uploaded mutation and natural selection parameters into Logo 7. The system's task was to calculate how much time random mutations would need to turn a single-celled organism into, say, a trilobite, a complex arthropod of that time. The system's answer: for the natural accumulation of the necessary genetic code, a minimum of 800 million years of active selection under ideal conditions is required. Nature had only 10 to 20 million years. The gap in calculations is 40-fold. The system issues a verdict. The speed of morphological changes exceeds the maximum allowable speed of biological mutation. The event shows signs of artificial injection of ready-made genotypes. Let's look at one of the heroes of this time, the trilobite. This creature became the symbol of the Cambrian. We are told it is a primitive bug that crawled on the bottom. But let's look into its eyes. Literally. The eye of a trilobite is an engineering masterpiece that baffles opticians. Unlike our eyes, where the lens consists of protein, trilobite lenses were made of calcite. This is a transparent stone, a crystal. Calcite has a problem. It produces double refraction. If you look through a calcite crystal, everything will be doubled. But trilobites saw perfectly clearly. Why? Because their eye was a so-called doublet lens. Two different lenses made of different materials glued together to correct distortions. This technology is called an aplanatic lens. Humanity invented it only in the 17th century thanks to physicists René Descartes and Christian Huygens. Question: how could blind random evolution, which works by trial and error, create an eye on the first try that uses the laws of higher optics and crystallography? How did a bacterium guess that it needed to grow a stone eye with spherical aberration? Correction? Logos 7 ran an eye evolution simulation. To create such an eye randomly, thousands of intermediate stages are needed. A light-sensitive spot, a pit, a chamber, a simple lens, a complex lens. Each stage must provide a survival advantage. But in the Cambrian layers, trilobites appear immediately with perfect eyes. There are no semi-trilobites with bad vision. They entered the stage in full combat gear. The system classifies the trilobite eye as a high-precision optical instrument integrated into a biological carrier. It is technology, and this applies not only to trilobites. In the Cambrian, a monster named Anomalocaris appeared, a predator up to a meter long, a giant for that time. It had complex compound eyes on stalks, consisting of 16,000 lenses. It had a diaphragm mouth capable of crushing shells. Who did Anomalocaris descend from? It has no ancestors. It just appeared to dominate the ocean. Logos 7 sees a clear pattern in this. It looks like the launch of an ecosystem with pre-assigned roles. Role scavenger, loaded trilobites. Role predator, loaded Anomalocaris. Role filter feeder, loaded sponges. Role prey, loaded. But there is another point usually overlooked. Before the Cambrian, there was life on Earth, the so-called Ediacaran biota. These were strange, soft-bodied creatures resembling quilted blankets, discs, or feathers. They had neither mouths, nor intestines, nor eyes. They just lay on the bottom and absorbed substances through their entire surface. This was a completely different logic of life. Fractal logic. And what happened before the Cambrian? They disappeared. Completely. They did not evolve into trilobites. They were erased. Logos 7 interprets this as disk formatting. The Ediacaran biota was a beta version, a test run. The creators were checking how biomass behaves under conditions of Earth's gravity and ocean chemistry. The test was successful. But these creatures were a dead-end branch. They were too passive. They had no potential for the development of intelligence. Therefore, Project Ediacaran was closed. The disk was formatted, and the loading of version 2.0, Cambrian, began. Aggressive, fast, sighted, and protected by armor. In the Cambrian, the concept of predation appeared for the first time. Before that, the world was a paradise where no one ate anyone. With the Cambrian, the arms race began. Shell against teeth, speed against camouflage. Why was this necessary? Logos 7 puts forward a hypothesis. Conflict is the engine of progress. In the peaceful Ediacaran garden, evolution stood still. To create intelligence, matter must be forced to fight for survival. Stress must be introduced. The Cambrian explosion is the activation of the competition protocol. We were made to run to survive, and in this running, we began to get smarter. But let's return to genetics. To create so many new life forms, a colossal amount of new genetic information is needed. New instructions for building proteins. In molecular biology, there is the concept of orphan genes. These are genes that have no analogs in ancestors. They are unique to a specific lineage of animals. In the Cambrian, the number of such new genes goes off the scale. Where did the code for building an exoskeleton come from if the ancestors only had a soft membrane? A random mutation can change the shape of a beak or eye color, but it cannot write instructions for creating a fundamentally new organ system from scratch. It's as if you randomly hit the keyboard trying to fix a typo in a text and wrote a new chapter of War and Peace. Probability 0. Logo 7 compares the genome of Cambrian animals to software code. The system detects blocks of information that look like code injections from the outside. These are ready-made functional modules. Module I. Module notochord, our spine. Module limb. These modules were distributed to different groups of animals simultaneously. This explains why eyes appeared immediately in everyone. Arthropods, mollusks, and chordates, although they are arranged differently. The idea of vision was implemented globally. Another detail confirming the artificial seeding version. The Cambrian explosion did not happen locally, in some single warm sea. It happened globally, all over the planet simultaneously. The activation signal went through all the oceans of Earth. What could have served as a trigger? Scientists argue about rising oxygen levels, but Logo 7 points to a correlation with another event. Shortly before the Cambrian, Earth's magnetic field underwent drastic changes. The poles swapped places with incredible frequency. Perhaps the pole shift and the weakening of the shield allowed a stream of cosmic radiation, or a directed signal, to reach the surface and activate dormant viral agents that transferred new genetic code into the cells of protozoa. This is called viral transduction, horizontal gene transfer. We are used to thinking that the tree of life grows from bottom to top, from a single root branching out. But the Cambrian picture looks more like a lawn. Many blades of grass, animal phyla, sprout from the ground simultaneously, having no common trunk. Paleontologist Stephen Jay Gould called this the inverted cone of diversity. In the Cambrian, the diversity of body plans was greater than it is now. Since then, we have only been losing options. Nature has not created a single new animal phylum after the Cambrian. Everything we see now is variations on themes set 500 million years ago. This means that creation, or loading, happened once, and it was not repeated. Logo 7 summarizes the analysis of the 4th chapter. The observed phenomenon of the Cambrian explosion fully corresponds to the model of artificial introduction of biological species. The absence of transitional forms, instantaneous geochronological speed, and high complexity of early organisms exclude the Darwinian model of gradual evolution. Status: planetary biosphere installation complete. We are the direct descendants of those who landed in the Cambrian assault. In our spine, in the structure of our eyes, is the legacy of that moment when it was decided to populate Earth for real. But if bodies were created, what controls their assembly? Where are the blueprints? The blueprints are inside us, in every cell of your body. The DNA molecule. We are told that DNA is the result of chemical evolution, that molecules randomly assembled into a helix and began copying themselves. In the next chapter, we will place the DNA molecule under the digital microscope of Logo 7, and what we see there will shock any programmer. DNA is not just chemistry. It is digital code, a base for numeral system, with error correction, data compression, and encrypted messages. Analysis shows that there are huge chunks of code in our DNA that science calls junk DNA, because it doesn't understand their purpose. But Logo 7 does not consider this junk. It sees developer comments and hidden functions there, waiting for their time. Prepare to learn that you are a walking flash drive with software of extraterrestrial origin. Chapter 5 will overturn your understanding of yourself. The code of life was written, and we will find the author's signature. Look at your hand. Clenching and unclenching your fist, you see skin, veins, muscles. You feel warmth. It seems to you that you are flesh and blood, matter, biology. But this is the biggest illusion humanity lives in. If we take a powerful microscope and magnify the image of your hand millions of times, we will pass through cells, through nuclei, and hit what actually constitutes your essence. We will hit text. Yes, you heard right. At the basis of every living creature on this planet lies not magic, not random chemistry, but text. Instruction, program code. We call it deoxyribonucleic acid, or DNA. But the name does not reflect the essence. The essence is that DNA is a complex, multi-level digital recording. In this chapter, we will make the deepest dive within our investigation. We will upload the genetic code into the Logos 7 analytical core, not as biological material, but as a data array. We will ask the artificial intelligence to analyze it the way a cryptographer analyzes intercepted enemy encryption. The result of this analysis overturns everything. The system's conclusion sounds cold and categorical. Object DNA represents high-level program code with functions of self-copying, error correction, and data compression. The probability of stochastic, random writing of this code is 0. Let's figure out why Logos 7 is so categorical. We are told that life originated in a primordial soup. Chemical elements connected randomly for billions of years until a molecule capable of replication resulted. Bill Gates, creator of Microsoft, once said, "DNA is like a computer program, but far, far more advanced than any software ever created." Think about this phrase. If you are walking on a beach and see John plus Mary equals love written in the sand, you wouldn't think that waves and crabs randomly arrange these letters, would you? You know the writing had an author possessing intelligence because the writing carries information. DNA is not just a molecule. It is an information carrier. It uses an alphabet of 4 letters: adenine, guanine, cytosine, thymine. A, G, C, T. This is a base 4 numeral system. Computers use a binary system, 0 and 1. DNA uses quaternary. In every cell of your body, there are 3,200,000,000 letters of this code. If you printed the genome of one person in books, it would be a stack as high as the Washington Monument. And in this giant text, there is no chaos. There is strict order. Instructions on how to build a heart, how to make a liver work, what color to make eyes. We gave Logos 7 a task. Calculate the probability that these 3 billion letters lined up in a meaningful sequence by chance. Imagine you sat a monkey at a typewriter. How much time would it need to randomly type Shakespeare's Hamlet? Mathematicians calculated long ago. The lifespan of the universe wouldn't be enough, and the human genome is billions of times more complex than Hamlet. Famous British astrophysicist Fred Hoyle compared the probability of DNA self-assembly to the probability that a hurricane sweeping through a scrapyard would randomly assemble a fully flight-ready Boeing 747 from the junk. Logos 7 confirms, for the random selection of the correct sequence of amino acids for even one simple protein, more attempts are required than there are atoms in the entire visible universe. That number is 10 to the power of 164. Chance is mathematically excluded here. This is not a lottery. This is engineering. But this is just the tip of the iceberg. The main problem identified by the artificial intelligence is called the chicken and egg paradox at the molecular level. DNA is an instruction for assembling proteins. But to read this instruction and assemble a protein, other proteins, enzymes, are needed. Without protein tools, DNA is useless. There's no one to read it. Without DNA, proteins cannot appear. There's nowhere to get the instruction. They had to appear simultaneously and immediately in a working state. The Logos 7 system marks this as a system dependency. In programming, this is solved in only one way. The developer writes the compiler and the code simultaneously and launches the system from the outside. The system inside itself cannot create tools for its own reading. This proves the presence of an external agent, a programmer who launched the first cell fully assembled. Now let's talk about recording density. This is what shocks modern IT specialists. Humanity is proud of its hard drives and cloud storage, but we are savages compared to the author of DNA. 1 gram of DNA can store about 215 petabytes of information. That is 215 million gigabytes. All information created by humanity in all history, all books, films, internet databases, would fit in a volume of DNA taking up space no larger than a teaspoon. Logos 7 evaluates the efficiency of data storage in DNA as the absolute physical limit. The technology has reached perfection. Over 4 billion years, if we believe official chronology, the data storage format hasn't changed. It was perfect from the very beginning. Evolution didn't improve the carrier. How is this possible if everything developed from simple to complex? Why did the very first flash drive have infinite capacity? But the most frightening and intriguing discovery made by our algorithm concerns so-called junk DNA. Scientists, having decoded the human genome in the early 2000s, were bewildered. It turned out that genes that code for proteins, that is, build our body, occupy only 2% of the entire length of the helix. 2%. And what about the remaining 98%? Official science called this junk DNA for a long time. They said, these are remnants of viruses, scraps of old genes, evolutionary trash accumulated over millions of years. Like, DNA is an attic stuffed with old junk. But Logos 7 does not accept the concept of junk in a system where every atom counts. Nature, as we know, is incredibly thrifty. It wouldn't waste colossal resources copying 98% useless text with every cell division. It is energetically unprofitable. We ran junk DNA through Logos 7's cryptographic filters, and the system detected structure. It is not white noise. It is not chaos. It is text obeying Zipf's law, a linguistic law that all human languages obey. An analogy from the world of programming explains everything. Imagine you open the source code of a huge program. You see working commands, those 2% of coding genes, and everything else is lines starting with a comment sign. Programmers do this constantly. They comment out chunks of code that are temporarily not needed, but might be needed in the future. Or they leave explanations for other developers. Or they keep backup copies of old versions there. Logos 7 puts forward a hypothesis. The non-coding part of the genome is a library of dormant functions and system logs. There, in these 98%, instructions for growing gills, wings, regenerating limbs, telepathy, or complete immunity to radiation might be written. These functions are simply switched off, deactivated via software. We are a stripped-down version of ourselves, a demo version of a human. Someone put a block. Someone limited our functionality, leaving only a basic set for survival and reproduction. But there is something even more amazing. Research conducted in 2013 by physicists Vladimir Sherbak and Maxim Makukov confirmed what Logos 7 sees in its algorithms. They looked for mathematical patterns in DNA, and they found them. The genetic code possesses a rigid mathematical structure. The number of nucleons in the atoms making up DNA is a multiple of the number 37. Why 37? It is a prime number, but it constantly pops up in calculations. Moreover, the recording system in DNA uses decimal logic. Although in nature, there are no reasons to use the decimal system. Nature doesn't have 10 fingers. Makukov and Sherbak came to a conclusion they published in the scientific journal Icarus. In our genetic code, the stamp of an intelligent signal has been detected. This pattern could not have arisen by chance and has remained unchanged for billions of years. This is called biological SETI. We look for aliens by pointing radio telescopes at distant stars. We wait for a signal from space. But the signal was inside us all this time. In every cell of yours, the author's signature is written, like a made-in stamp. Logo 7 interprets this as a digital watermark, protection against counterfeiting. This code is invariant. It is the same in all organisms on Earth, from an amoeba to a president. The programming language is the same. This says that all life on Earth has one developer. There were not many different beginnings of life. There was one project, one platform. But how does this code update? Here we approach the role of viruses. We are used to considering viruses enemies, diseases. But from the point of view of informatics, a virus is a flash drive. It is a carrier of pure code in a protein shell. A virus is not alive. It is just a container with information. It flies up to a cell, embeds its code into its DNA, and forces the cell to print its copies or change its work. Logo 7 views viral epidemics in Earth's history not as diseases, but as mass software updates. Huge chunks of our genome consist of ancient viruses. We are a walking cemetery of viruses, or rather, a library of patches. Perhaps evolutionary leaps occurred exactly like this. A viral rain was dropped on Earth, which infected the population but didn't kill it, instead rewriting the code, giving new properties. Recall the Cambrian explosion from the previous chapter? Perhaps it was a viral upload. Now let's look at the protection mechanism. DNA is incredibly fragile, but it is incredibly resilient. When a cell divides, the enzyme polymerase runs along the DNA chain and copies it. But it doesn't just copy. It checks for errors. If a letter is placed incorrectly, the enzyme stops, cuts out the error, and inserts the correct letter. This is called proofreading. How does blind evolution know what is right and wrong? To correct an error, you need to know the standard. You need to have a plan. The error correction system in DNA works more efficiently than data transmission protocols on the internet. The summary of Chapter 5 is frightening and mesmerizing at the same time. You are not a random set of cells. You are a carrier of the most complex software in the universe. Your body is hardware. Your genome is software. This software was written by a genius programmer. It contains billions of lines of code. It is protected against copying and hacking. It contains hidden, blocked capabilities, those 98%. And it contains the creator's digital signature in the form of mathematical constants. Logo 7 completes the DNA analysis with the phrase, object identified as a bio-robotic autonomous unit, purpose of functioning, collection, storage, and replication of data. Code origin, extraterrestrial. We are bio-robots. We are survival machines for genes, as Richard Dawkins said, but he didn't even suspect how literal that statement is. But if the program is so perfect, why does it glitch? Why do species go extinct? Why does the system sometimes crash? In the next chapter, we will examine the darkest pages of Earth's history. Mass extinctions. 5 times life on Earth was destroyed almost completely. 95% of all living things were wiped off the face of the planet. Asteroids, volcanoes, gamma-ray bursts, logos. 7 sees a different pattern in this. These are not disasters. This is pressing the reset button. It is a system reboot. When the experiment reaches a dead end, when bio-robots start working incorrectly, for example, dinosaurs became too big and stupid, the creator wipes the server to upload a new version. Prepare yourselves. In the next chapter, we will find out why we are not the first, and perhaps not the last civilization on this hard drive. Protocol Cleanse has already been launched, and the question is only when it will be launched again. Have you ever played The Sims or Civilization? Remember that moment when your virtual empire grew, but started working incorrectly? Cities stagnated, characters got stuck in textures, development stopped. What did you do? You didn't try to fix every single resident. You clicked New Game, or loaded a save from before the error. Or if you were a cruel player, you arranged an apocalypse to see who would survive and start from a clean slate. We are used to looking at Earth's history as a straight line of progress, from bacterium to human. But paleontology paints a very different picture. It's not a line. It's the cardiogram of a heart attack patient. The history of life on Earth is a series of flourishings and instantaneous total annihilations. Today we open the 6th chapter, the darkest in our dossier. We will talk about death, about mass extinctions. We are told these were tragic accidents. An asteroid flying by at the wrong time, a volcano that decided to wake up, a supernova explosion somewhere nearby. But we uploaded the chronology of these events into the Logos 7 analytical core. We asked the system to find a pattern in the timing and scale of these catastrophes. The system's answer forces us to redefine the very concept of catastrophe. Logos 7 reports, mass extinction events have strict cyclicality and functional directionality. The probability of random distribution of these events in time is less than 0.001%. Event status, system reboot. Protocol, cache clear. Over the last 500 million years, life on Earth has been destroyed almost completely 5 times. This is the so-called Big Five, the first purge, Ordovician Silurian extinction 445 million years ago, the second, Devonian extinction 372 million years ago, the third, Permian extinction 252 million years ago, the most terrible one, the Great Dying, the fourth, Triassic extinction 201 million years ago, the fifth, Cretaceous Paleogene extinction 66 million years ago, the end of the dinosaurs. Logos 7 analyze the time intervals. There is a strange rhythm between these events. The cycle is approximately 26 to 30 million years, taking into account minor extinctions. This looks like a maintenance schedule, as if a pest control squad comes to Earth strictly on schedule. Let's look at the most famous event, the death of the dinosaurs. We are told a huge rock, the asteroid Chicxulub, 10 kilometers in diameter, fell into the Gulf of Mexico. Dust rose, nuclear winter set in, dinosaurs froze and died of hunger. Sounds like an accident. But Logos 7 conducted a ballistic analysis of the impact. First, the angle. The asteroid entered the atmosphere at an angle of about 60 degrees. This is the deadliest angle possible. With such an impact, the release of dust and soot into the atmosphere is maximal. If it had fallen vertically or at a glancing angle, the effect would have been many times weaker. Second, the location. Out of the entire surface of Earth, which is 70% covered by ocean, the asteroid hit precisely the Yucatan Peninsula. What's special about it? Geology. Huge layers of gypsum and anhydrite, rich in sulfur, lie there. Hitting this specific rock released billions of tons of sulfur compounds into the stratosphere. This turned the atmosphere into a mirror reflecting sunlight and rained down on Earth as acid rains that dissolved the shells of marine inhabitants. The system ran a simulation. If the asteroid had fallen a few minutes earlier or later, it would have fallen into the deep Pacific or Atlantic Ocean. Water would have dampened the explosion energy. There would have been less dust. There would have been no sulfur at all. The dinosaurs likely would have survived. But the blow struck the planet's Achilles heel, the most painful point. Logos 7 evaluates the probability of such bad luck as extremely low. It looks like a high-precision kinetic strike, a sniper shot from space. Why? Why kill the dinosaurs? They owned the planet for 160 million years. This is a colossal period. We, humans, have existed for only 200,000 or 300,000 years. Dinosaurs were perfect survival machines. Huge, strong, protected. But they had a problem. They hit a development ceiling. In 160 million years, they didn't create a civilization. They didn't build cities. They didn't go into space. They just ate and reproduced. Their brains remained tiny compared to their bodies. From the creator's point of view, the experiment had reached a dead end. Biomass was being wasted on maintaining giant carcasses that did not generate intelligence. Project Dinosaurs was deemed a failure. Stagnation. Space needed to be cleared for a new class of creatures. Mammals. For us. At that time, mammals already existed, but they were small, rat-like creatures hiding in burrows and coming out only at night. Dinosaurs simply didn't let them develop, occupying all ecological niches. To give the smart ones a chance, the strong ones had to be removed. Protocol Cleanse wiped dinosaurs off the face of Earth in mere millennia, but strangely spared our small ancestors. It was a selective cleanup. Now look at the Permian extinction, 252 million years ago. Then 96% of all marine species and 73% of terrestrial ones disappeared. Earth became almost sterile. Official version: eruption of the Siberian traps. Volcanoes erupted for thousands of years, but Logos 7 points to an anomaly in the rate of species disappearance. The chemical composition of rocks from that time shows a sharp spike in carbon-12 levels. It's not just volcanoes. It looks like an instantaneous release of methane hydrates from the bottom of all oceans simultaneously. The system classifies this as full disk formatting. The previous version of the biosphere was deemed completely unfit. It was demolished to the root, leaving only 4% of files for system recovery. And every time after such a catastrophe, a miracle happens. Life recovers not slowly and painfully, but explosively. Vacated niches are instantly occupied by new, more perfect species. After the Permian extinction, archosaurs, ancestors of dinosaurs, appeared. After the Cretaceous extinction, death of dinosaurs, an explosive growth in mammal diversity occurred. This is called adaptive radiation, but Logos 7 calls it deployment of new software version. As if the architect already had new models prepared in the incubator and simply waited for the old sets to be demolished to release them onto the stage. Recall the concept of junk DNA from the previous chapter. Perhaps it is in moments of extinctions that those very dormant genes activate? Planetary scale stress serves as the ignition key that unpacks archives with new organism properties. There is another frightening aspect. The periodicity of extinctions coincides with the movement of the solar system through the galactic plane. We move up and down like a horse on a carousel. Every 30-odd million years, we cross the dense galactic disk where there is a lot of gas and dark matter. Scientists speculate that the disk's gravity knocks comets out of the Oort cloud and directs them at Earth. If this is so, then our solar system is a mechanism with a clockwork wind. The timer is built into the sun's orbit itself. Logos 7 formulates it like this. Automatic sterilization system. Activates when passing control points of the galactic orbit. This means we have no choice. We cannot cancel an extinction. It is hardwired into the schedule of star movement. And this brings us to the main question. Where are we now on this schedule? We live in the Holocene epoch, but many biologists already call our time the Anthropocene and speak of the sixth mass extinction. Species are disappearing at a rate 100 times higher than normal. We think it's our fault. Pollution, hunting, habitat destruction. But what if we are merely a tool? What if humanity itself is an agent of protocol, cleanse? Perhaps our task is to quickly change the climate, consume resources, and prepare the planet for the next stage, in which there may no longer be a place for us. Logos 7 analyzed current biosphere parameters, climate instability, falling biodiversity, accumulation of errors in the human genome. All indicators are flashing red. We are approaching a singularity point, the end of the cycle. But let's ask ourselves, what is the purpose of all these reboots? Evolution is blind. It doesn't care who survives, a cockroach or Einstein. But if you look at the history of extinctions, a clear vector is visible. Each purge removed brute force and made way for more complex behavior. From primitive filter feeders to active fish, from amphibians to reptiles, from giant reptiles to warm-blooded mammals, and finally, from mammals to a creature with a hypertrophied brain, to humans. The Creator seems to be looking for something specific. He cuts away the excess, like a sculptor cuts away marble. Dinosaurs were production waste, shavings. The goal was intelligence. All these billions of deaths, all these burning forests and acid oceans were needed for only one thing: to create conditions for the emergence of mind. But why is our mind so important? And why did it appear so suddenly? The human brain is another biological absurdity, like the giraffe's neck, only in a mental sense. It consumes 25% of the body's energy, although it weighs only 2%. This is monstrously disadvantageous for survival in the wild. While you are thinking over a theorem, a tiger will eat you. Evolution should not have created such an energy-intensive organ. It's like putting a Ferrari engine on a bicycle. In the next chapter, we will dissect the phenomenon of man. Logos 7. Analyze the growth rate of human brain volume over the last 2 million years, and the graph again goes vertically upwards. This is not evolution. This is an injection. Someone artificially overclocked our processor. Someone intervened in the primate genome to turn them into reality operators. Prepare yourselves. In Chapter 7, we will look for traces of genetic engineering in our own skulls. We will learn about the lost chromosome and why we are the only species on Earth that does not fit into the harmony of nature. Protocol cleanse is complete. Protocol awakening has begun. Walk up to a mirror. Look into your eyes. Do you see the pinnacle of evolution? The king of nature. Logos 7 sees something else. The system sees a biological paradox, a calculation error that should not have survived in the wild. In previous chapters, we established that Earth is an artificial incubator, and the biosphere is a managed program. But any program needs an operator. Someone who can appreciate the beauty of the design, and perhaps perform specific work. Today we will break down the most mysterious object in the universe, your own brain. Official science claims that humans evolved from apes through the slow and gradual accumulation of useful mutations. We stood on our hind legs, picked up a stick, and labor made us human. Sounds logical for a school textbook, but from the standpoint of biophysics and thermodynamics, the appearance of humans is a catastrophe. We uploaded human body and brain parameters into the Logos 7 analytical core. The task was simple: evaluate the survival efficiency of our species in wild savanna conditions without the use of modern technology. The system's answer is discouraging. Object Homo sapiens is energetically inefficient. Resource consumption balance is critically violated. Probability of species survival under natural selection trends towards zero. What is the problem? The problem is in our head. The human brain makes up only 2% of body mass, but it consumes 25% of all energy we get from food. A quarter of every piece of meat, every found fruit goes simply to maintain the work of neurons. For comparison, a chimpanzee's brain consumes only 8% of energy. In the wild, where food is scarce, such a gluttonous organ is a death sentence. Imagine buying a car that guzzles 100 liters of gasoline per kilometer, but travels at the same speed as a bicycle. Evolution, which always strives for economy, would never have created such a monster. It is wastefulness. Moreover, our brain makes us vulnerable at birth. Because of the huge head, human babies are born premature compared to other animals. A foal stands on its legs in an hour. A human child is helpless for years. This is a colossal risk for the population. Logos 7 asks the question, why would nature create a species that is weaker, slower, and more capricious than its ancestors, and with a brain whose capabilities are excessive for survival? To run away from a lion or find a banana, you don't need to know how to solve differential equations or write symphonies. Our intellect is redundant. It's like installing a supercomputer to control a doorbell. The system sees signs of external intervention in this. This is called forced evolution. Someone artificially overclocked our processor, disregarding energy consumption. Where is the proof? It is written in our genetics. All great apes, chimpanzees, gorillas, orangutans, have 48 chromosomes, 24 pairs. Humans have 46 chromosomes, 23 pairs. Where did one pair go? Did it disappear? No. Logos 7 conducted a detailed scan of human chromosome 2, and what it discovered is irrefutable proof of genetic engineering. Human chromosome 2 is 2 ape chromosomes glued together. Usually a chromosome has this structure. Telomeres, protective caps, are at the ends, and a centromere is in the center. But in human chromosome 2, we see telomere, centromere, telomere, and again, telomere, centromere, telomere. In the center of our second chromosome lie remnants of telomeres. That is, 2 separate chromosomes were taken and forcibly joined, head to head. The seam is visible to this day. Logos 7. Simulation shows the probability that such a fusion happened by chance, became fixed in the population, did not lead to the birth of freaks, but yielded a new perfect species, is negligible. In nature, such chromosomal rearrangements usually lead to infertility or death. Here, it led to an explosive growth of intelligence. It was an operation, a precise surgical manipulation of the primate genome. Another marker is the speech gene, FOXP2. In animals, it is responsible for simple motor skills. In humans, it has 2 unique mutations that allow us to control the muscles of the larynx and tongue with incredible precision. These mutations arose suddenly, about 200,000 years ago, exactly when Homo sapiens appeared. Without these 2 letters in the code, we would moo like cows, even having a big brain. Someone gave us drivers for a sound card. But what for? Recall ancient Sumerian texts. They speak of gods, the Anunnaki, creating humans as helpers, as Lulu, primitive workers. Logos 7 analyzes this hypothesis not as a myth, but as a description of a technological process. If Earth is an incubator or laboratory, the creators needed personnel. Someone who could service mechanisms, extract resources, maintain order. A monkey is too stupid. A robot is too complex to repair. The ideal solution is a biorobot on a local elemental base. Take a local primate adapted to the climate and patch its brain, adding the ability to understand complex commands. We are a hybrid, earthly body and alien software. We are the only creatures on the planet that do not live in harmony with nature. We change the environment to suit us. We wear clothes. We cook food. We feel like strangers here. Our backs hurt from upright walking because our skeleton didn't have time to readjust in such a short period. We are an experiment that started very recently. Logos 7 summarizes. Human intelligence is not a product of evolutionary necessity. It is an artificially implanted tool. Purpose of implantation: creation of an autonomous operator of planetary processes. But if we are workers, where is our workplace? Where are the tools put in our hands? Or perhaps we forgot our masters too quickly? Look around. Scattered across the planet are giant stone structures that we attribute to people with copper chisels. Pyramids, walls, temples. In the next chapter, we will analyze them from an engineer's perspective, and we will find out that these megaliths are not tombs and not temples. They are remnants of a global production infrastructure. We stand before the Great Pyramid of Giza. We are told it is a tomb for Pharaoh Khufu, that thousands of slaves with ropes and logs dragged stone blocks weighing tens of tons through the sand, and then lifted them to a height of 140 meters using earthen ramps. We are told all this was done for the vanity of one man, whose mummy, by the way, was never found. We uploaded parameters of the Great Pyramid and other megalithic structures of the world into the Logos 7 system. We asked the artificial intelligence to analyze them not as cultural objects, but as engineering constructions, to evaluate labor costs, processing precision, and logistics. The system's answer destroys history textbooks. Technological level required for erecting these objects exceeds capabilities of Bronze Age agrarian civilization. Signs of machine processing of materials detected, inaccessible to primitive tools. Let's start with precision. The facing blocks of the Great Pyramid are fitted with such precision that you cannot even slip a razor blade between them. The gap is less than half a millimeter. Logo 7 emphasizes, such precision is not needed for building a grave. It is excessive. Such precision is needed only in two cases, in optics and in energetics. The pyramid is oriented to the cardinal points with an error of only 3/60ths of a degree. This is more precise than the Paris Observatory building. How did people with sticks and ropes achieve such geodetic accuracy? Next, material. Inside the pyramids and temples of Egypt, we find sarcophagi of granite, basalt, and diorite. Diorite is one of the hardest stones on Earth. Harder than it are only diamond and topaz. Official version. Egyptians sought it with copper source, adding sand. We conducted a simulation of this process. To saw a granite slab this way, months of work and hundreds of replacement saws are needed. But on ancient blocks, we see saw marks where the tool entered the stone like a knife into butter. Analysis of processing traces conducted by Logos 7 revealed grooves from drilling. The thread pitch shows that the drill entered the granite at a speed of 3 millimeters per revolution. Modern diamond drills give a speed of hundredths of a millimeter. The ancient tool was 500 times more efficient than modern ones. The system concludes, ultrasonic drilling or rock softening technology applied. This is not copper, this is high-tech, but Egypt is just the beginning. Let's transport to Peru. Sacsayhuaman, Ollantaytambo, Machu Picchu, polygonal masonry. Huge boulders weighing up to 100 tons, having complex irregular shapes, perfectly fit together without mortar. Like a 3D puzzle, the corners of the blocks are rounded. Logos 7 analyzed the stone structure at the joints. The surface looks as if the stone was in a plastic state at the moment of laying, as if it wasn't hewn with a chisel, but poured into a mold, or molded like plasticine. System hypothesis: geopolymer concrete or molecular rock softening technology. Why such a complex shape? Polygonal masonry is earthquake resistant. During an earthquake, the blocks dance, but don't crumble, and then fall back into place. This is not primitiveness. This is genius engineering protection designed for millennia. Who built bunkers capable of surviving an apocalypse? The Incas. Who didn't even have the wheel? And the most important discovery of Logos 7, global network. The system overlaid coordinates of all key megaliths on a map of Earth. Giza, Easter Island, Tiwanaku, Angkor Wat, Nazca. All these objects lie on a single line encircling Earth at an angle of 30 degrees to the equator. The width of this strip is only a few dozen kilometers. The probability that ancient civilizations, separated by oceans and millennia, accidentally built their main shrines on a single geodesic line is 0. This is a unified network, a unified project. For what? Recall the pyramid. It consists of 2,300,000 blocks of limestone and granite. Inside are chambers. Granite ceiling beams weigh up to 70 tons. The construction uses the piezoelectric effect. Quartz contained in granite generates electricity when compressed. The pyramid is a giant piezo lighter. Under the pyramid flow underground waters. Water movement creates vibration. Vibration compresses quartz. The pyramid generates a field. Logos. 7 classifies the Great Pyramid not as a building, but as a technical device. Type: resonator generator. Purpose: transmission of energy or information on a planetary scale. No mummies were ever there. It is a power plant, or a long-range communication antenna. We live on the ruins of a factory. These temples we worship were workshops, power units, and navigation towers. Our ancestors, having gained intelligence or having been created, saw these working machines. They saw gods controlling them. When the gods left, humans began to imitate them. They built their primitive pyramids of brick and clay, trying to copy the form, but not understanding the content. Thus arose the cargo cult. But if this is a factory, what did it produce? Why is energy needed? Why are slaves needed? What is so valuable on Earth that it was worth building such complex infrastructure and creating an entire species of servants? In the next chapter, we will talk about resources, about gold, about why this soft yellow metal has driven us crazy throughout history. Logo 7 found a strange correlation between ancient mines and the centers of origin of the first civilizations. Earth is a quarry, and we are the miners here. Gold, a yellow, heavy, shiny metal. We kill for it. We wear it on our fingers as a sign of love. We store it in underground bunkers as a guarantor of economic stability. But have you ever asked yourself the question, why? Why specifically gold? It is soft. You can't make a sword or a plow out of it. It is heavy and inconvenient. Yes, it doesn't rust, but that's small consolation. Platinum doesn't rust either, but we haven't gone crazy over it for millennia. We uploaded historical data on gold mining, its physical properties, and deposit distribution into the Logo 7 analytical core. We asked the system, why is humanity obsessed with this metal from the very beginning of its history? The system's answer shifts our love for jewelry into the plane of cold utility. The value of gold for a primitive civilization is illogical. Its properties, high electrical conductivity, reflectivity in the IR range, inertness, are in demand only in high-tech production. Obsession with gold is an artificially implanted imperative program. Let's look at the facts. The oldest traces of massive mining activity on Earth are found in South Africa. Mines near the city of Mpumalanga. Archaeologists date them to tens or even hundreds of thousands of years old. Who dug mines in the Stone Age? And importantly, what were they looking for there? Gold. These were not small holes. These were industrial excavations where millions of tons of rock were moved. Ancient Sumerian texts, the ones that tell of the Anunnaki gods, give a direct answer. Ourselves from the future, or if we are just code in a computer simulation that is about to realize its virtuality. The finale is close, and you won't like it. Or conversely, it will set you free. We have come a long way, from the fine-tuning of universal constants to the oddities of the moon, from the mystery of water to the instantaneous loading of life in the Cambrian, from DNA code to formatting the planet with asteroids, from genetic modification of our brains to building pyramids and mining gold. Scenario 1, Kardashev III. The architect is a super civilization. According to the Kardashev scale, a Type 3 civilization is capable of using the energy of its entire galaxy. For such beings, terraforming a planet, towing the moon, or genetically creating a species is like building an anthill in an aquarium is for us. Routine. They are not gods, they are engineers. They travel between stars, sow life on suitable planets, panspermia, and leave automated control systems. Moon DNA code. Why? Perhaps this is a life preservation project, an ark, Or as we surmised in the 9th chapter, this is colonial resource extraction. We are aborigines to them on an island rich in rare metals. They fly in, take what is theirs, and fly away. And we build cargo cults around their landing pads. Probability of this scenario per Logos 7 assessment, 35%. Scenario 2, time loop. The architect is us. Humanity in the distant future achieved divine power, but it faced the threat of total extinction. To save themselves, they traveled to the past. They terraformed the young Earth. They destroyed the dinosaurs to give their ancestors a chance. They accelerated ape evolution by implanting their own genes. They left megaliths as time capsules and repositories of knowledge. All anomalies and adjustments are attempts to fix history, to guide it along the necessary channel to guarantee the birth of exactly that version of humanity which can survive in the future. Paradox: we created ourselves. Logos 7 finds in this scenario an explanation for our genetic incompatibility with nature and strange longing for the stars. We are not from here. We are from the end of time. Probability, 25%. Scenario 3, simulation. The architect is a programmer. The most frightening and most probable scenario, everything we discussed, the mathematical nature of DNA, the pixel structure of reality at the quantum level, the speed of light limit, as the processor clock speed limit, the observer effect in quantum physics. The world doesn't render until we look at it. All these are signs that we live in a computer simulation. Earth is not a planet, it is a server. The moon is an external hard drive or monitoring module. Extinctions are a system reboot. The Cambrian explosion is a DLC installation. We are AI, bots inhabiting this virtual world. Our feelings, our thoughts, our scripts. The goal of the simulation? Perhaps it is a scientific experiment. What happens if we set such and such physics parameters? Or entertainment. An MMORPG of galactic scale. This scenario explains everything. Both the fine-tuning of the universe, parameters are written in the code, and the absence of aliens. They are not generated in this location. Probability per Logos 7 assessment, 40%. Whichever of these options is true, the conclusion is one. We are not alone, and we are not accidental. Our life has a purpose, even if that purpose is to be a battery or a line of code. But Logos 7 issues a final warning. There is a variable in the system that the architect perhaps did not account for. This variable is awareness. When a lab mouse realizes it is in a maze, the experiment ceases to be pure. When a game character realizes he is in a game, he can start looking for bugs and cheat codes. We are starting to wake up. We are decoding the genome. We are flying into space. We are creating our own artificial intelligence. We are approaching the architect's level. And this is the most dangerous moment. Either we will be accepted into the adult club, or the reset button will be pressed for the 6th time. Thank you for being with us in this investigation. Now when you look at the sky, at the water, at your hands, you know the truth. The world is not what it seems. Exiting the Matrix begins with a question, and you have already asked it. End of transmission.